what do you do in property?
So, I mean, for me, within property, because that's what I've definitely seen now within this pandemic now, is that I was chatting with my wife how, you know, with everything that had been happening, the properties that we had bought just like 5-6 years back, you know, I was saying to her, you know what, I've been looking at these calculations, and with everything happening with our stores and everything, I said, you know, over the years, do you know how many times those tenants have skipped rent? She's like, no. And I said, these tenants have never ever skipped rent. You know, we need to focus on this much more when it comes to property, and so that's why, I mean, even as we building this new business as well, I mean, the main thing for me as well is just plugging back into property. I mean, my journey with property, where it started, obviously the books and the reading, and I had a mentor and things like that. And what I kept looking for was an opportunities in South Africa where, you know, I could buy a property and it would cash flow from day one. So that meant that, you know, what I would buy, and if I compare that with the bond and all the other expenses, then I'd be getting extra money into my account every single month. Now, all my colleagues and everybody I'd talked to said that didn't exist.
How's going? It is your boy TJ, and it is another day where we're celebrating a successful M5 successful friend. And today we got no any other than Papa. Papa, how's it going?
It's good, man. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome stuff. Dude, we've been hanging out together, and me and you, we share a similar life that we had, and we didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
And only to realize that actually our path crossed quite a lot, but we didn't just know each other. I think a friend of mine who is out in Tanzania is the one who said to me, do you know this guy? I'm like, no, I don't know him. Then later on to realize me and you, we work for the same bank. Who's Papa, and what's your story in terms of business?
Oh, no, cool, man. No, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, we do share a mutual friend. Know myself, originally from Ghana, came to South Africa with my parents. When was that? That was about what, 88? Yeah. Sure, it's my whole life, man.
Yeah.
So we came.
I mean, dude, I want to speak about that, right? Because I think a lot of people, I see a lot of people that move into different places, or I mean, 88. You've been in South Africa. I don't even think that you qualify being your roots are from Ghana, but you know, I mean, if you had to go there, you totally lost.
Yes.
And you don't even know the linguals. You don't even know nothing. You qualify to be just South African. Come on, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, it's just obviously when one sees, it's like, no, but something is different here. You're not Xhosa, you're not Zulu. Where? So that's why, you know, I generally just explain it. You know, a good friend of mine, he's from Nigeria with similar roots, and he says with us, I mean, we're more global citizens. We belong to the world because we don't belong anywhere. Because if you go to Ghana, you know, it's a bit strange when you hear, you know, you belong but you don't belong. So it's always one of those things, you know.
I think it's a painful conversation that I suffer with as well. Because, like, for instance, my family is originally from Malawi. Then they settled in Zimbabwe, and then I moved here. And if I go back into all of those countries, you know, I can't relate to what's happening now because I'm not there.
Yes.
And the way you are staying, other people might not relate to you now because they're seeing you as an outsider. And I think there's lots of us who are like that out there. Either by circumstance or by just life.
Yeah, so then that's why I just find it important. I mean, the circle that I like to just keep around, I mean, it's all mixed, different people, and it's very, very deliberate because from a young age, you know, I got to see that you become the people that you spend your time with. And I mean, that's a choice that you have today. that you can control. There's lots of things that you cannot control, but those actually are the things that one can control. So I try and be very deliberate about the people that I spend my time with. So I mean, just grew up in South Africa with my brothers, my brother, my sister. Obviously went through schooling here, then went to study at the University of Pretoria. I studied actuarial science there. I enjoyed mathematics. So my father was actually my mathematics high school teacher. He taught mathematics. So yeah, I mean, mathematics was in our blood. I did actuarial science. My brother did engineering. He did masters in engineering. My sister she's a chartered accountant. She also lives in the UK now. So we all did numbers and things like that. So that's where passion lies.
So two things, man. Like having your dad as your teacher, that should have been painful. I don't know.
We're having a nice conversation. Why are you taking me to painful periods?
No, I'm just saying. Because I can't imagine one of my parents being my teacher. It was just painful at home, being painful in the class as well. I think you were like a very straight student.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I was very straight. I mean, because also I'm the eldest in my family. So, okay. I mean, my brother's 2 years younger than me, and my sister's 2 years younger than my brother. So there's that 2-year gap, because I did mention that my father's a mathematics teacher.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how it was. So for myself, you know, it was always important in being the eldest to just not toe the line, but I mean, just to set the example, because they really did follow close. We are a close family. And it was just important that, look, I mean, this is what we're going to try and achieve for our family. So let's just do things the best that we can.
And Papa, I almost want to speak to the point that for me, I've always seen a lot of guys from the West being very intellectual. And there you are, your dad comes through here and he's an educator. And all of you, the three of you all guys, come out kind of like very strong in mathematics, and you're strong individuals in your own being and whatever that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
But over and above that, the other thing that I also want to mention here is that the ethics and the learnings of becoming someone who is very strong in education. I mean, I know a lot of guys in the West who are either professors, a lot of doctors, things like that. And I mean, you're an actuarian by profession, which is something that's a little bit crazy, because right now in South Africa, or should I say in Southern Africa, actuarians are like gold. And you leave that for property, for entrepreneurship. I mean, that's a little bit crazy, because at the moment you could be getting paid like solid income at a financial institution somewhere out there.
No, 100%.
What's the difference?
No, 100%. Look, I mean, also the same thing came from my mother as well, because I mean, she taught English throughout high school. Right. And so like in our family, it was always about education. And I think what just changed with me is that obviously, you know, I worked for quite a bit within the banking sector. And what things was changing for me is because I liked to read. And as I'd read, my mindset actually began to change quite a bit. That's funny, because I was talking with a friend of mine just 2 days ago, and you know, the world has changed quite a bit now with the pandemic and people without jobs and access and things like that. And he was just saying how for him, he's just found, even though he has a lot of time on his hands, he's not the type of person to be able to come up with a business to do. He's not the type of person where his mind can figure out something different to do. And I thought, you know what, I really do relate, because I was that person. I really come from that type of space. I've got no business being in business. But the thing is that because, you know, I read so much, that's actually what managed to change the way that my mind worked and my mind would think. You know, books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I've read all of Robert Kiyosaki's books. I read all the property books from Jason Lee. And I read like lots of different books around different entrepreneurs and different personality habits and things like that. And I developed a love affair with reading. But you must understand that, I mean, even though going through that period being in corporate, you know what it's like. It's hectic. You know, all you can do is spend so much time, you know, in your job and in your role and so on and so forth. And I realized what happened over time is that the same thing began to apply with me. And you are the same, isn't it? Which is that entrepreneurs are actually then the only people that want to stop working 50 hours a week for somebody else just so that they can work 100 hours in a week for themselves.
And potentially get paid less.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning, you see, because it's the promise of that of what one is building. Yeah.
A friend of mine says to me, TJ, I said to him, dude, business is doing well. I think that I can see the light in the tunnel. And he says, what kind of a light is it? I said, no, man, you know the same. And he says, well, the light in the tunnel could mean two things. I said, yeah. He says, it could be a train coming in and you don't see it. It's gonna smash over you, or you are going to go into the other side of the tunnel and win.
Yeah.
So what light is it? So I'm like, okay, I didn't think about that. Let me come back to you. But here's the thing. So you go out and you start educating, self-educating. That's what you started doing. And at what age or at what point was self-education important to you? Because being an actuarian, I think a lot of from where I come from, you've arrived. You've got a status bar. You are doing something that ordinary people don't do. And by the way, for people that don't even know what an actuarian is, what is an actuarian?
Well, I mean, you can say, look, and actually, I mean, somebody quite detailed when it comes to numbers. And also, you know, the way that we learn, you can actually be applied in varied industries. So, I mean, you could actually even call, like, let's say an actuary, if you're looking at that qualification, you know, it's about 15 different board exams. And only like after you've completed all of them, do they give you the title. But even as you're doing, you know, the exams in between, I mean, you learn quite a bit. So most people don't do all the 15 exams. I mean, I didn't do all the 15 exams. You do them after you finished university. But a lot of the skills you're able to apply it in all types of areas, whether it's banking, insurance, and it's just a different way of thinking. And there's, you know, all types of other different qualifications. So I mean, myself, you know, how I utilized those skills specifically was within banking, and where I was located was predominantly within the home loans environment. And I stayed there for about 10 years. So by the time that I eventually left corporate, I mean, I was a vice president at the bank. And when I moved out of that, my wife and I would already started our entrepreneurial journey. So we had retail stores where we'd sell African clothing and things like that, and accessories. And we had the stores nationwide. So, you know, we were following a very specific model through our coaches that we had. And so by the time I even left, I left after we had 4 stores nationwide already. So it wasn't like I was leaving to go and start something, you know. I was very specific, which was to start something, you know, where you can earn while you learn, you know, and you just grow through the process.
Yeah, Papa, let's go back to where it starts, right? Look, there's so many things that I'm wanting to get out of you, and I'm hoping that time is going to permit us. The self-educating part, you know, for me, it came through as a pain that I'd lost money. That was my problem. I lost money, and I then started seeking. Like, there's other people that are making it. How come they're making it? And what is wrong with me? Why am I failing, right? And when I was doing well in business, I wasn't looking for information. I wasn't looking for to self-develop myself. But only when I
Okay.
started failing, that's when I was like, boom, I need to, there's potentially something that I don't know yet. Now, for
Yeah.
you, why go through the journey of self-development when your parents had already kind of like given you the open platter here in terms of your education, and you're getting paid very well? You're a vice president at one of the biggest banks in South Africa. But you want to go the extra mile into self-education. Why?
I guess, I mean, you could say if I was looking into the type of life that I actually wanted, it wasn't the life then that my parents had put on a platform for me and that I was living. Okay. And that was available. I mean, 100% was available. But the type of people that inspired me most of the time, it was entrepreneurs, going out and creating something and starting something for yourself. And, just having the courage to just try. And if it doesn't work, I mean, you can go back. I mean, what's the big deal? It's not really going to be the end of the world. And I think that was the benefit of having the education that our parents put upon us, was that there was something always to fall back on. But it was just a thing as well, just to be able to know that, hey, man, if I wake up in the morning, I'm going to be able to chase after something that's going to bring me more fulfillment. And everybody's different. Everybody's different. But it was just something that was important for myself. I mean, if you ever meet my wife, I mean, she's the one, she's born as an entrepreneur. But for me, that came really much, from reading, and it just changed my mind in terms of what I was actually going to be chasing. So that's where it came from, and also understanding that, look, I'm not going to understand everything that there is to know. I'm going to have to learn a lot, and that's how just developed a love affair, with learning new skills, and that's what moved me forward.
At a point, whilst you're still a vice president at a big bank, big red bank, they're trying to dominate Pan-Africa at the moment. And I'm like, yeah, they should. Once I go into Africa, they'll become my bank. And here's my thinking. You started off a business, and your business was very much of a boutique. And I'm only speaking in the past year because you started talking into the past, but you still have some shops open, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing where you talk about the light at the end of the tunnel when you're chasing it. You're chasing that light at the end of the tunnel, and you're just hoping that it's not a train. Now we got hit with the train, because if beginning of last year we had 7 shops nationwide, and we're pretty much expanding as things were going. And then obviously the global pandemic hit, and it's had a devastating impact on the retail sector. So I mean, with us even, I mean, we've gone from the 7 shops currently with the 1 shop.
Sure.
I mean, that's one of the things that's happened in this period, where you look around and you just see sometimes it's like this devastation, and it's other people's stories up until it's happening to you, and it's quite a traumatic experience to go through. And you take time to take stock and obviously grieve the loss, because it's obviously a dream that was built that's dissipated, and then at some point after you've grieved, you force yourself and to pick yourself back up and to try something different, try something new.
Yeah. I mean, I get exactly what you're talking about. When my wife and I, we lost some money, I think at a point my wife was in her own space, and she was dealing with it very differently than I was. And at a point, I'm like, okay, fine, we're here. But I remember at a point, I was also lost for action. I'm like,
yeah.
And this thing is going to pass. So I'm like kind of like burying my head into the sand. I'm like, yeah, we're going to see it. But then I think I was watching something, or I was reading a book somewhere along the line, and it kind of like told me that, look, your head is in the sand. You've got to start doing. And I started looking at people that I felt in businesses, and I'm like, what is the one thing that these guys are doing? And I realized that they were not stopping. So yes, they had a fail, but they were not stopping to continue. And there I was talking about the grief. I was grieving what I had lost. And actually, had I continued in that space, then I would have lost everything. But I then utilized the same energy of losing and grieving. And I'm like, okay, what is it that I can do? And I channeled that energy into that space. My wife, when she became, I almost want to say that when she stopped her grieving, she caught up, and ever since then we kind of like winning in our household, because now we understand, okay, fine, we lost, but we don't have to stay there. You can continue. So I feel your pain, but well done on realizing, you know, my background is psychology. Well done on realizing that it's a fail, but I need to continue still. And that's where the win is. That's where the win is. Having said that, you start this business, right? And P&H Boutique, that's the brand that you have on it. And you start this business whilst you're employed. So in other words, it's a side hustle.
Yes.
Why that business? And why did you make it a side hustle as opposed to, hey, I'm gonna leave my job and I'm gonna start this thing? You actually left when you said when you're around about 4 shops. So 4 shops is quite solid. And just walk us through that thinking, because I think there's lots of people that are wanting to start thinking, that are wanting to start doing something, and they're thinking, should they leave? And I'm always saying to people, why don't you run the 2? And people are always saying to me, they don't have the time. I'm like, nah, you do have.
You must make the time.
Yeah. What was the journey like for you?
Well, look, I mean, all I can say is for me, you know, one of the things that I kept quite close, you know, especially in the Robert Kiyosaki books, is that there's different types of ways you can earn money. You can earn money as an employee, as an entrepreneur, as a specialist, or as a business owner. And I wanted to be what you described as a business owner, somebody who can earn money, you know, while you sleep. You know, you develop systems within your business. And, you know, he explained very nicely that you don't just become that type of person. You've got to learn and grow before you can become that type of person. And one of the ways that he recommended is keep your full-time job and start a part-time business. And the reason to start a part-time business is there's lots of things that you're going to need to learn. You don't know how privileged and entitled you are when you're in your corporate job. You are so entitled that, you know, if you go immediately from that and start off your business from day one, you'll even be sitting around and asking, okay, where do I get the pens? Who do I need to, where's the secretary for the pens? No. When you've got a business, everything now relies on you, and you've got to do all aspects before then, once you're doing it at a suitable level, you can then pass it on to somebody else. And that's just a process, you know, just in terms of building a business. Why we started that specific business, it could have been any business, but we found that there was a gap in the market for traditional attire when we'd have weddings to attend, and you just couldn't find people who would treat us on our level, you know, as middle class people who'd give us good service. And then we just found out, why don't we create that type of business where we can service people and give them the right type of respect as well. So I mean, that's how we entered that space. Yeah, and as we moved on, what I've definitely seen is that the difference is really just to develop a love affair with learning new skills.
Yeah.
Because I mean, one of the things that we had learned was pretty much we were stuck, and then we took a social media marketing course. It was a Facebook course for business people, and we took that. I remember at the time, I think we had maybe 10,000 followers on our social media platforms, and yeah, about 4-6 months after we did that course, it shot up straight to like 100,000. And obviously, once you shoot up to 100,000, we actually ended up creating more demand than we could supply, and that's how we were forced to open brick and mortar stores, because now, you know, there was too much demand. I mean, the social media stuff now, I mean, I think we've got about 500,000 followers there. And we've actually taken that part of what we'd learned to now create a new business for ourselves. And that's what we focus on with that new business.
Look, so this is a business in a business. And this business here is almost like it came in from a problem. You had a problem and you've got this idea of this is what I want to do. But now you're thinking, where am I going to find the customers? And the customers are everywhere. And you created your social media, and that it has now become, it's almost becoming your main business.
100%.
But you still have the other business, which is your P&H, and now the two are kind of like feeding each other. So you have two sources of income there. Some people might look at it like, hey, P&H could be dying. In my mind, I don't really think that. I actually think that you kind of like drawn back, you're re-strategizing. Hey, why don't you go full on online, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Because you already have the audience, people that that can buy from you, and you can have less of the expense of having bricks and mortar. But bricks and mortar is always solid because you've got a relationship with the client. But I also want to speak, Papa, in terms of the pain that you lived and having the opportunities that you have. So for instance, I think when we start these businesses as young entrepreneurs, there's a lot of things that we don't know. I'll give you my own my own testimony right now. In my current business, one of our pain points has been systems, right? How do you track stuff? I've got buildings there, but how do you just track stuff? And a couple of months ago, we implemented a system which is called an MIR, and it's a world-renowned system in terms of managing your real estate. But I was looking at that system, and I was looking at it and seeing you pay it in US dollars. That was just before they came into South Africa. And I'm thinking, yo, that's a lot of money. But the pain of it, and the moment that we started getting the training, some things that we were doing in 20, 30 hours, the system does those things for you once you fed it correctly. And I'm like, this is saving grace.
That's crazy, eh? Yeah.
It is, right? So the point there is, in some cases, there's systems, in some cases, there's opportunities, but you just need to look at it in terms of where you are in your pain at the moment, and then you start addressing it. But I want to speak to your social media business, right? What is it now? What have you done with it? It's now a business. What kind of a business?
That's cool, man. It's actually, we were thinking about it the other day. It's like we've created our own digital media agency. The social media business, I mean, where it came from is from a pain point, actually. And I've just seen that, in our life, whenever we've seen like either I'm depressed about something, that's the moment when I know, what, it's time to actually take a new course and learn a new skill. And that's one of the things that we did, just in terms of learning further, how to build a brand on social media, how to send the message out there so that you can actually dominate within your space. And it started with my wife as well, where we actually just ended up with one client where we ran a masterclass teaching people how to utilize Facebook and Instagram, on a better platform. And the lady who attended said, I'm not going to apply all of these things that you said. Why don't you just do this for me? So it started with one person, and as you do that for them, there's different aspects that they add, whether it's advertising on social media platforms, whether it's presenting them in a better manner, and just presenting them in a manner where they can dominate the space. So it started very slowly with one client, and it grew from there from the beginning of the year. So now we've got quite a number of clients, and they pay a monthly retainer. We don't have to now deal with landlords and things like that. And now with the volume of clients that we've actually managed to get, even last week we ended up hiring people. We hired 2 new people to be part of the team, just so that now the elements that don't require our work anymore, you can actually pass that on to somebody else. Because you do learn, it's the same thing in entrepreneurship. You learn that if you can find somebody to do what you do very well, if you can find somebody who can do that at 80% of your level, rather than have somebody else do that, so you can actually focus on what's really important for your business and whatever really brings you joy. So with that social media side, it's all types of different angles. It includes like website creation, SEO management. Because the team is expanding, and then we just offer those services to our clients, and it keeps growing. Yeah.
So at the beginning of my entrepreneurship, I don't look myself as an entrepreneur anymore, but more of a business person. And my business partner, Rita, was saying to me at the time, dude, we need to find employees. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to have employees. Employees are paid. I'm going to go to CCNA. I need to train people, all of those things. So I was like anti-employees for like a solid 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And my thinking was that just outsource everything, Look at me now, we are 6 years in, we got in 5 cities, we've got 50 employees now, 52 employees. But here's the thing, there's something that I've personally learned. In every bunch of apples, there's very good apples.
Yeah.
And there's also bad apples.
Yeah.
Now, when you go out to select the ones that fit what you're trying to build. Because if you're good at selecting that, then you're gonna find good employees. But if you're also bad at selecting, you're gonna find the bad apples, and bad apples are not only good for themselves as being bad, but they are also contagious to your good people.
Right? Yeah, it's terrible. Yep.
And coming from an HR background in the corporate, I think I lived that for a long time. So I've always been scared. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy, that boss on the other side. But there's ways to mitigate that. So well done on finding someone to replace your time, because that's what you've done. You've taken out your 8 hours, you have given it to someone, and that someone now is running with your 8 hours. So it basically means you are free. You can now execute your next task. And if you find that this is now becoming a task, you can give it to another person. Now you've got 2 people. But not only are you still now earning 1 rand, but this other person is earning you 2 rand, another person is earning you 2 rand, you're earning 2 rand. So collectively, you're making now 6 rand, but maybe you're paying the other guy 1 rand and 1 rand. So you're making a bit of dough here on the side once you're doing that. And I think for me, that's what I didn't think about that in the beginning. I was anti that. But you've got a game in property as well. I mean, we're speaking about all of these things that are all around, but you've got a game in property as well. What do you do in property?
So, I mean, for me, within property, because that's what I've definitely seen now within this pandemic now, is that I was sharing with my wife how, with everything that had been happening, the properties that we had bought just like 5-6 years back, I was saying to her, you know what, I've been looking at these calculations, and with everything happening with our stores and everything, I said, over the years, do you know how many times those tenants have skipped rent? She's like, no. And I said, these tenants have never ever skipped rent. We need to focus on this much more when it comes to property, and so that's why, I mean, even as we building this new business as well, I mean, the main thing for me as well is just plugging back into property. I mean, my journey with property, where it started, obviously the books and the reading, and I had a mentor and things like that. And what I kept looking for was an opportunities in South Africa where I could buy a property and it would cash flow from day one. So that meant that, what I would buy and if I compare that with the bond and all the other expenses, then I'd be getting extra money into my account every single month. Now, all my colleagues and everybody I talked to said that didn't exist. They're like, no, if you buy property in South Africa, you're going to be negative for the first year or two. Then after the rentals increase every year, then maybe by year 3, you'll be in a positive position. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. And that's not what they talk about in these books. And even agents in the areas that I'd live, when I speak to them, they say that what you're looking for doesn't exist. Until I found a mentor, and he guided me, and he moved me and showed me a block of flats that were available for purchase. And, I was quite skeptical, and, we were deliberating at home about this opportunity, because there was also another opportunity to purchase land and to develop like a 4-bedroom house and sell it off, which would have required a lot of capital. But I looked at this opportunity here, and while we're trying to decide, then I'm looking at this thing and explaining, and I'm explaining to my wife, and she says, wait a minute, but these books that you've read, it says that an asset is something that brings money into your account, okay? And a liability is something that takes money out of your account, okay? So why are we discussing this option with the land right now when it's going to be taking money out of our account for quite a long time? Whereas like these flats here, it's going to be bringing money into our account every single month. It's like, no, then let's take the cash flow positive option. So at that time, when we were presented with that opportunity, we went and we bought 4 flats at the same time. And then the bank approved the loans for those 4 properties all at the same time. And I was very, very shocked that they did all of that at the same time. And it's funny, that was like a once in a lifetime opportunity that was presented. We could have taken like 16 apartments that time. The bank would have given us money for that. And we didn't, because we were quite nervous. It was the first time that we were doing something like this. And yeah, but then since then, I just learned more, and that's what we've chased, purchasing more of those type of flats. And then I've been managing properties for investors as well, and how that's just morphed now, because I'd always get questions in terms of, can you help me with this? How does this work with property? And, it just happened organically as well, where it became a thing where, I'd get people where they were paying me to mentor them, and we do different things as well. So I've got students now, I'm helping them as well, just around strategies around property, because you don't think about it, because I was in residential home loans for 10 years. I learned a thing or two. That's what happens. And most people are not aware about that, and just how to be an investor from day one, that you set yourself up correctly. So that's how that's morphed. And that's how, came up, and you'll find me on social media around, Papa Biz, because I'm a business person as well, but I like to talk about property and the things that I've learned through property. And that's how that whole channel has come through.
Awesome. Sometimes when one is speaking to you, it sounds like you're in a lot of stuff. But I get it. It's all interlinked.
It's all together.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm saying that is because there was someone who passed a comment to me and says, TJ, you're doing a lot of things. Don't you get confused? I'm like, no, it's a river. Without that, I can't do A, B, C, I can't do D. So it all flows together. In conclusion, out of all of this that you do, what do you love? Where is your passion?
Yeah, look, I think my passion is more in learning, and learning new things and new skills. Because if I'm not learning, then it's like I'm dying.
Sure.
So I'm always looking for new angles and new things to learn, either through reading or courses and things like that. Something that I've seen, and this is the part that I can leave you with, is I've seen that I learned it from a Robert Kiyosaki book, is that the biggest unfair advantage that he says that he and his wife had that allowed them to set themselves to the level that they're at now, is that they would spend money on non-traditional courses at least twice a year, so they could learn something that they didn't know before. You know, so this can be around taxes. This can be around how to be a better salesperson. This can be around property. This can be around business. But every single year they were doing that, and that's something where I'm not going to say that I've managed to do that every single year, 2 courses per year, but we've managed to do quite a bit of that as well. And I've seen that whenever we've paid somebody to learn from a new course, we've learned skills that have really managed to elevate us in future. And that's something that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about learning.
That's amazing, man. If I'm to ask you, like, what does success mean to you in everything that you're doing now? You haven't left your job, which is a very good job, by the way, in my books. And you're on this journey now. I mean, where does it end? And, I mean, because for me, learning, I'm on the same path with you. I'm that guy who I just want to learn new stuff. Because I've realized that the more I learn, the more I'm actually putting more money on the table. And with that, someone says to me the other day, TJ, so when does it stop? And my response was, why do you have to stop? But here's something, right? So for some people, they're wanting to get to success, and they now define this is success. Buying a bicycle, buying a car, that's success, right, for them. But I think for me, success is not, I haven't been able to define it yet for me. I'm still on the journey of learning. But I want to ask you that question to say, what does success look like for you? When you kind of like, is there a fabric somewhere that Papa B is going to be like, this is success?
Mine's actually very specific, because I mean, it can be general. I can use like a general statement where I'd say, you know, if I'm able to wake up in the morning and between that time and when I go to sleep, if I'm able to do what is actually important for me, then I know I'm successful. But to be more specific, with a very specific example, it's something close to me that I'm always chasing. And we were getting there, and now we've just had to revert a bit. But I will know for me, I'm successful.
You're on a detour, that's what it is, man.
Yeah, it's a detour. Yeah. I'll know for me that I'm successful if I can go through 12 months in a calendar year and not experience winter.
I'm with you.
So I'll be able to travel and I'll work and whatever I'm doing, and you know, whether it's property, business, whatever, but you know, we're able to move away and never experience winter. Then I'm like, you know what? Okay, I've reached success. It's a very simple thing.
Okay, so what does that mean? It means that we need to have, number one, all right, well, both of us were from Johannesburg. So we define Johannesburg, and we need to define maybe somewhere in the West if we are wanting to stay in Africa, or we probably want to go into the European markets when winter hits the side of town. I like your thinking. I'm with you.
Very simple.
But you know what? That used to be very futuristic. I asked my wife the other day, do we have to stay in Johannesburg?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer was no. It was because of work. It was because of what we knew as work, and that translated as staying in Johannesburg. But now we don't have to. We can knit everything around our lifestyle, which is unfortunate, and fortunately it's centered around our kids at the moment, because obviously we want the best for our kids. But we can also knit it in another way of our belief. And where do we see that in the world? One of my brothers, he's Jewish. he had just moved to Israel. And
wow, look at that.
and I was like, why? Why did you move? He said, look, I'm close to my mentors, I'm close to my religion, and I can do business anywhere in the world. Just connect on Zoom. And I was like, that's gold.
Yeah.
But it's been a pleasure having you around. I want to wish you all the success in your business. Any closing comments to someone else who is at home right now watching us and they are wanting either to start in any of the businesses that you run today?
You know what? It's quite simple, because it's something that I've come to learn now, which is that you know, we need to prepare ourselves, you know, and figure out whichever way that you're going to utilize to prepare ourselves. Because I mean, this saying, it goes like, you know, the opportunity of a lifetime must be seized in the lifetime of that opportunity.
Yeah.
But you can't seize that opportunity if you haven't prepared yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're preparing yourselves either with the mentors that you're keeping around you or the books that you're reading and so on, then you can get lucky, because, you know, luck is when opportunity meets, is when preparedness meets opportunity. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's the last thing that I just leave for anybody, is really prepare yourself. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. That was Power Biz. Ladies and gentlemen, you got it right. I told you. Another M5 successful friends. God bless. We'll check you out on the next video.